Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, July 18th, 2019. Hope everyone has had a wonderful day. Got some space weather news to start off the show tonight here at the grandsolarminimum.com, where Mari has taken the time to put together some links for our show tonight. We also have the replay of the YouTube video right here embedded at our website. Let's get started with some space weather. Our solar wind speeds are currently sitting at a 377.1 kilometers per second with a density of 1.1. Our KP indices are sitting at a 1 with a 24-hour max of a 2. And while we're at it, let's check out the TCI, which has dropped once again from 2.85. Now it is down to 2.73. This is the lowest that we have seen it here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel since we've been reporting on TCI. The record minimum was 2.05, and that was back in February of 2009. So right there in the middle of that minimum that we had, the last minimum, which was one of the deepest in the last 150 years. Let's go ahead and go over to our space weather section. As I said before, our KP is at 1. 24-hour max is 2, so nothing happening at this moment. The sun is blank. I believe that's now 10 days in a row without sunspots. Let's go ahead and check out the SDO zoomed in a little bit here, folks. And we really don't see much of a disturbance on the front of our sun at this time. There is a coronal hole that is opening up right now as it's turning towards Earth. We'll continue to monitor and see if there's any more development in that side, but also want to point out that there was it looks like a CME that was occurred on the western limb of the sun. And just so you guys know what I'm talking about here, let's go ahead and move that right back in this area, and that's why we're seeing the camera jolting here. I believe that there was a minor effect from that CME. Now, it was not Earth facing, so it shouldn't do any kind of direct geomagnetic activity, but it could ping the magnetic field. So we'll just keep our eyes on that over the next 72 hours. Until then, really, we don't have anything going on with our sun. The coronal hole that we showed you, I think it was Tuesday night, we will begin to see maybe some increased solar wind speeds beginning tomorrow and into July 20th, which is Saturday. Let's take a look at our star all the way around, and I'll tell you, clear right now, but once we get on the eastern limb and right before that, a few clicks back, we've got a pretty decent sized coronal hole that is now appearing. So we will watch that. That's right on the equatorial region. So if that thing continues to hold up as it is right now and get a little bit larger even, we could see some geomagnetic activity from that particular coronal hole based on the solar wind. And of course, how wide this is, we could see possible G1 or G2 storms if this thing holds up when it comes Earth facing. Other than that, nothing to really report on sunspots. No active regions that to be concerned of at this time. Our TSI reading for July 9th, 2019 was at 1360.6952. We peaked out over the 1360.825 region back in the 1st of July. And since then, we've seen a continuing trend of declining TSI. Once again, it hasn't moved that much. We've had a couple of times where we've dipped below the 1360, but not much, folks. So again, TSI being monitored as much as we can. The information is usually about 8 days behind when it comes to these readings from this particular source anyway. All right, so let's get with it here. Don't have a lot tonight, but we have a few things, and I'm going to start off with the very difficult Volcano here. Strong tremor signal at SUBSCIBESTAR Volcano. Aviation color code raised to orange in Alaska. Elevated seismicity that began under the SUBSCIBESTAR Volcano in Alaska on July 17th, 2019 increased overnight. Was followed by a stronger tremor signal at 7:39 UTC on July 18th. In addition, an infrasound signal was produced on an infrasound array located about 161 miles east on the Adak Island. This event likely produced ash emissions. And at the current level, continued unrest, similar events could occur with little to no warning, according to the AVO. The meteorological cloud deck has been around 10,000 feet above sea level over the volcano, and no ash signals have been detected above this height. A small plume about 11 miles from the Cerberus vent was visible in satellite data from yesterday, but did not contain an ash signal. Nothing has been detected in lightning data either. As a result, AVO has raised the aviation color code from yellow to orange and volcano alert level from advisory to watch as of 1838 UTC time. So thanks to the watchers.news for continuing to cover everything, and there's a lot to talk about. Some days we have a little bit of news, but the thing that I find that's still frequent about the news is that we still are talking about earthquakes, volcanoes, and floods happening somewhere. No matter how little events have happened in the day, it's still something to report. Heavy rain floods Toronto, Canada, July 17th, 2019. Flooded numerous roads, including major ones, causing traffic delays and leaving some motorists trapped in floodwaters across the greater Toronto area. Toronto Fire said it responded to 12 water rescues in 2 hours, ending at 11:30 local time, with multiple cars trapped in floodwaters at each location. Serious flooding took place on the Highway 400 ramp and Illinson Avenue, CTV News Toronto reports. At least one car had to be hoisted out of the high water. The Toronto Regional Conservation Authority issued a flood warning Wednesday afternoon after some areas received more than 3.1 inches of rain in less than 6 hours. Now, due to the heavy rainfall moving across the greater Toronto area, rivers within the area are expecting high flows and high water levels. Some portions of Black Creek have overtopped riverbanks and causing local flooding issues. All rivers and streams within the GTA should be considered dangerous. Here's a little bit of footage here, folks. Take a look at this in the Toronto greater area. Cars being hoisted out. I mean, at this point, the car's been submerged. It's probably totaled out, unfortunately. More images from Twitter. Again, I always see probably the best collection of video imagery and photography in these Watchers News when they put these Twitter feeds together here. So thanks again to Watchers.news for their coverage, taking the time to bring us the unique footage, not the ones that we see on every Facebook page. Again, just an idea of how heavy the rain was. We'll leave the link on our website for you guys to check out later. And Asteroid 2019 NF7 flew past Earth at 0.98 lunar distances. We've seen closer ones, but it did make the news today. Newly discovered asteroid designated 2019 NF7 flew past Earth at a distance of 0.98 lunar distance on July 9th, 2019. This is the 30th known asteroid to fly by within 1 lunar distance since the start of the year. This is the 30th known asteroid to fly by Earth within... wow. Mari is my statistician. I'd like for you to maybe look up when we get some free time. I'm curious to know how many less than 1 lunar distances asteroids do we get a year?
I don't know a year. I know that we've had a few, it seems, pick up right now. I think it's that time of year. There's certain things orbiting around, and our atmosphere is sort of not reflecting them as they would, since we are in minimum. Right,
magnetic field's a little weaker. So that could have a lot to do with it as well. But something still piqued my interest here, and I'll have to look into that myself. This object belongs to the Armour group of asteroids. It was first observed, I should say, at Palomar Mountain, ZTF, on July 9th, 2019, and made known to the public by the CNEOS on July 18th. The asteroid has estimated diameter between 29 and 66 millimeters. That's 95 to 216 feet. It flew past at a speed of Earth about 9.30 kilometers per second. Not as fast as we would have thought. Some cool little graphics here on SPACEWEATHER.com. I'm sorry, I should say watchers.news. Having a rough day today, guys. Sorry about that. Here is a record of all of the less than a lunar distance passerby asteroids. The closest looks like we hit the 0.18 mark back in January 16th. We hit the 0.19 mark May 16th. Interesting. A lot of synchronicity here, guys. We'll leave the link at our website. Oh, here we go. This is a great chart here. So we see asteroids within 1 lunar distance in 2018, and it breaks it down month to month. So 24, 37, 39, 41. Roughly around 60 or more, 70 in a year. Obviously, we've seen an uptick. And that has to do, I would think anyway, that the weaker magnetic field is not doing its job like it usually would during solar maximum, deflecting these asteroids a little bit further out. I believe anyway. That has something to do with it. But definitely you guys can look at this chart and there's a huge difference so far for the first part of this year going into the second half of 2019. Very interesting stuff here, guys. More flooding, rivers at highest levels since records began. 60,000 homes destroyed or damaged in Bangladesh. At least 60,000 homes were washed away or damaged in 13 districts across Bangladesh after a heavy monsoon rains hit Bangladesh and neighboring countries over the past week. At least 26 people have been killed and 3 million have been marooned. Over the past couple of days, rivers overflowed. 122, flooding thousands of villages right now. Thousands of villages, folks. According to the special flood bulletin issued by Bangladesh Water Development Board on Thursday, July 18th, rivers Jumana and Tista are at levels not seen in 40 years of water level records. The Jumana River, 8.38 inches above the danger level. And on July 17th, and the Fucheri, I believe that's how you say it, breaking its previous record of 8.20. Others here that were 8.31 inches over as well. New water record level also set at River Tista Dalia point at 20.91 inches above the danger level on July 12th. Previous water level record was 20.88, so it didn't smash the records by any means, but still. It beat the record. What year was that set? 2017. So right at the beginning of, I would say, where the minimum conditions started to settle in. 2016, I believe, we started to see the decline in solar activity late that year. And 2017, we got a little bit weaker. And of course, 2018 was a lot weaker. And right now, 2019 is scary weaker, in my opinion. Take a look at some footage here of some of the more flooding issues. It's a news report, don't want that. Some of these say not for broadcast in different languages, and then we get dinged. So maybe I won't show them. You guys can check out this flood footage here, watchers.news. Again, 60,000 homes across 13 affected districts. About 3.2 million people stranded, and excuse the pack of rhinos that you hear in the background.
I'm going to get the puppy.
Thank you.
And put her somewhere. We have a puppy and a kitten, and they really are best friends.
Fantastic.
Oh my god.
All right. Got some more footage too, flooding footage here. This is Turkey. This is not the first time this year we've seen this kind of flooding out in Turkey, but it is the most recent. This was as of today, July 18th. More footage. What a mess this really can be. Cosmic ray increase. I did a solar update today, and it's talked about how we've seen rates more than double since 2000 Also, if you guys take a look to my right, our good old friend David Birch, the artist formerly known as the Starman, now TSM Solar Observations, has a little weather update here in the Twitter feed. Check it out. It's from the UK. Very reliable source, guys. One of the most trusted in the community as far as information. Let's take a look at a little bit more flooded. These are a little bit more raging waters here, guys. Unfortunately, we have an email that I want to read later in the broadcast from a person who has driven through Kansas and has firsthand seen the flooding out there in Nebraska and Kansas. And it's not good. And what bothers me the most is that this person that communicated with me, I've been talking to him via email probably over a month now. And this gentleman kind of just gives me a little bit tidbits here and there, updates about flooding and stuff like that. So nice guy, but this email is becoming a more common sight across the United States. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into some climate news here on GrandSolarMinimum.com. Taking this article here from What's Up With That. British MP demands an end to affordable food to combat obesity and climate change. Dr. Willie Soon, according to the British MP Michael Gove, cheap food damages the environment and encourages poor people to overeat. Okay, true cost of but actually, before I even start, all right. Last time I talked about obesity, there was a lot of people in the comment section that were pretty harsh, and again, I don't understand all the judgment. Not everybody's perfect, but I feel like that this story is covering up. It would be easier to say we're having a food shortage than someone coming out and just straight up saying, cheap food damages the environment, encourages poor people to overeat. I know some people who have a lot of money that eat a lot of food, lots of it, and they're rich. It's because they have the money. To say that poor people overeat makes it sound like it's almost kind of classifying people here, like segregating here. Anyway, radical change needed to make UK food and farming systems sustainable within 10 years. The true cost of cheap, unhealthy food is spiraling public health and crisis and environmental destruction. Hey, listen. So I'll agree with this to a point, that it is more expensive to eat healthier foods. You go to your supermarket and you want the good stuff, you want to take care of your body, it is a little bit more expensive. So is it the consumer's fault that the stuff they really need to eat is almost out of their budget when you look at some of the food costs today? I'm not trying to make an excuse for people, but at the same time, I get it. Not everybody can afford to eat and shop on a budget that demands a little bit healthier foods. And unfortunately, there's a lot of comfort food out there that's just more convenient and cheaper to buy. We all know that. So I see both sides, but I'm still more sympathetic to the cost of trying to eat healthy all the time. And I know some of you will probably give me a lashing, like go out and grow your own garden. It won't be that expensive. You're right. Absolutely, absolutely right. But some people aren't capable or able to grow their own food at this point. We still have a lot of issues with a lot of people are still underwater. Lots of floods. So, but you guys can check this article out. I just wanted to share it because it's from a part of the world where they're already trying to. I was reading here. What else was it? This, yeah. they wanted to also, this is another area that's going to look to the word ecological transformation of our food and farming system we urgently need. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Only because we are being encouraged to eat foods that are healthier for us, which means foods that are grown in fields, for more than likely, fresh produce. So let's steer away from the cheap processed foods. Let's get rid of it, ban them, and make people, force them to eat this fresh produce that you grow in the fields. The only problem with that is that we're starting to see shortages right now across the world, especially here in the United States. And who would have thought? You know, people say, well, you know, it's just peas. No, it's crazy to me that any grocery store in the United States is having a shortage on peas, green beans, and potatoes. Flour is on the list now. That's crazy to me that those 4 things are in shortage. And this is just the beginning. And we're hearing this because of last year's supply not being enough to meet the demand. So when you have a country that wants to get rid of the cheap foods and unhealthy foods and maybe tax these healthy foods like they do the carbon tax, but tax you now if you want a chocolate covered granola bar. They could scroll it when the show's over, Mari, and read it.
People are asking in the chat to scroll up the...
I was in the middle of thought. Sorry.
Sorry.
Totally derailed me. Thank you.
Sorry. You're welcome.
No, but think about it. They want to make the cheap foods less accessible, and they want everyone to eat more produce, more fresh veggies, stuff like that. But that supply is running low right now. And who knows what next year's supply is going to look like. If last year's crop wasn't good enough to meet this year's demand, what is next year's crop? How are they even going to come close? I'll have to keep looking. Germany risks running out of power. You don't say. And I'm being sarcastic about this because these guys were the biggest ones on taking on the green energy and all that good stuff. But it says here, Germany, a poster child for renewable energy, is renouncing nuclear and coal. The problem is, say many power producers and grid operators, it may struggle to keep the lights on. That's what we say here too as well. The country, the biggest electricity market in the European Union, is abandoning nuclear power by 2022. Due to safety concerns compounded by the Fukushima disaster and phasing out our coal plants over the next 19 years to combat climate change. In the next 3 years alone, conventional energy capacity is expected to fall by 1/5, leaving it short of the country's power or peak power demand. There's a disagreement over whether there will be sufficient reliable capacity to preclude the possibility of outages, which could hammer the operations of industrial companies. The Berlin government, in a report issued this month, said the situation was secure and shortfalls could be offset by better energy efficiency, a steadily rising supply of solar and wind, as well as electricity imports. Regardless of reliability, however, Germany becoming a net power importer would have a major consequences for the whole continent, whose power markets are intended or interlinked under EU single market rules and are dominated by exports from Germany. The shift comes at a time when nuclear plants in France and other major exporter to the rest of Europe are aging fast, meaning it is also increasingly likely to rely on imports. So, again, more proof coming out, and this is something that we've been talking about for a while, about wind and solar not being enough. Another part of this world, another country that wants to ban coal in 19 years. So this is what I think about when I see numbers like that, when people put a timeline on when they're going to ban coal. And I always think about how AOC claims that we have 12 years to get our CO2 emissions under control, or we're going to see the end of the world. People are going to die. And then I see where countries like this want to ban coal in 19 years. Well, I thought we only had 12 years. Other parts of the United States that are issuing these new laws, like New York, where they want to ban coal and natural gas within the next couple of decades. Again, exceeding that 12-year timeline that AOC is scaring everybody with. So, to me, the Green New Deal is a last-minute cash grab. I've repeated myself over and over about this. This 12-year scare is nothing but to get people on board with it so they can get the money as fast as possible. She's the only one saying 12 years. Everybody else is saying in 20 years and 30 years, we're going to ban natural gas, we're going to ban coal. You know, we're going to ban all these CO2 emissions in 30 years. I mean, I'm confused. These guys really need to get their story together and stay with one story. Because there's too many people out there that don't have their facts lined up. And again, I don't think a lot of these people even understand what's happening to our climate, or even the science of what's happening to our climate. Crop bulletin report, guys. So I wanted to read this, and I was going through this report, and I was seeing like some of the crops are being rated as good right now, very good. And I don't know about that, guys. I've got pictures, and I meant to have them loaded up tonight, but I've got pictures of corn stalks being sold, or ears of corn. You have to shuck them. 3 for $1. And I mean, goodness gracious, I've seen Snickers bars that are bigger than some of these ears of corn. But I want to show you guys the percentage of very poor, fair, good, and excellent crops. First of all, let's go to the excellent. Nobody's killing it right now. Nobody has excellent looking crops. Period. Soybean, by the way. What's scary is that last year we had between 76 and 82% of the crops that were in good or excellent condition. This year, if you had to combine the good and the excellent percentages for Arkansas, it only amounts to 56%. Illinois, the good and the excellent only amounts to around 41%. Ohio, 33%. Tennessee, not too bad, around 77% in the good to excellent condition. So, looks like we have maybe half, 50% in good. Most of them, I'd say the average is probably about 40% in the good, 9% in the excellent percentage, and then there's a wide range of fair, 32, 37, 40, 30%, 43% in Kansas is fair. Nebraska, 24% of your crops right now are fair. 63% are rated good. That's a pretty strong number compared to everyone else out here. 8% rated excellent. This is soybean numbers, guys. Just soybean. The lowest one is Ohio right now, which is kind of surprising because they usually do pretty good when it comes to soybean. Corn. Again, the majority of the corn is in the good rated area and fair. Actually, the percentage in the fair is a little bit higher, I think, overall average. We see a lot more 40, 20, 30% fair. Good, same thing, 30, 40, 50% good. And then a couple of 60s, 63, 67, 65, and 61% in Pennsylvania is rated good. 67 in North Dakota is rated good. Nebraska, your corn, 63% of it's rated good. Top that with your 13% of excellent rated crop. You're looking at a total of 76%. So Nebraska, parts of Nebraska are having a decent turnout so far as the season is continuing to grow. But look at Ohio. There are 33% in the good and the excellent. And tonight for the corn is 38%. 35% rated good, 3% rated excellent. 38% of the corn crop is rated good or excellent. 33% of the soybean crop is rated good or an excellent. Both crops are in the 30s with the good, and then the very low 3% in excellent rated crops. So I'm hoping that we make up for it in places like Tennessee, some parts of Texas. Who else is looking decent? Pennsylvania's okay. North Dakota, Nebraska, Kentucky even. I don't know. We'll see what happens next week because they got a lot of rain. So we might have some crop issues out there as well. Kansas, it's getting better. Iowa, 62% good and excellent. It's getting closer. But here we are in the second week of July, guys. And these are numbers that we probably see in late June. So very concerned about the percentage of crops, how they're looking. Also, winter wheat harvested. Right now in Arkansas, 100% has been cut. That's awesome. Last year it was 100% by now, so those guys are right on target. Different story, though, in Nebraska. Last year this time they were at 57% harvested. Now I spoke to Matt, and I know he was just getting to cut his winter wheat on Tuesday of this week. So these numbers reflect true in my opinion. Right now in Nebraska, only 14% of the wheat, the winter wheat, has been harvested. That's an improvement from last week, only 2%. But the 5-year average at this point of the year is 52%. So they're a little behind as well. But at least progress is being made. North Carolina is in great shape. 93% of your wheat has been harvested. The winter wheat, that is. Just a little bit under where they were last year, which was 98%. Ohio, 64% of your wheat has been harvested. 84% last year, so you're down 20%. Oklahoma, you're only down 2% from last year. Oregon, 4% of your winter wheat has been harvested. But last year at this time, only 16%. So that's, give you a contrast. It's 4 times worse this year. South Dakota, nothing. Haven't harvested anything. The 5-year average at this point is 21%. And they are at a 0. Previous year is 17%, which reflects of things getting a little bit worse each year. Texas, awesome shape. Winter wheat, 97%. You're actually over last year's percentage at this time, which was 94%. So Texas, Oklahoma, some parts of Nebraska, Missouri, and Arkansas, all in good. California, all are in good shape with your winter wheat harvest. 5 states. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 5 states. Got some work to do out there, guys. And let's hope that we continue to get dry and hot weather. And, that's the thing that is also concerning me in the upcoming future. But here comes the hottest claims ever. Here they come. We have a heat wave now. Here's the thing. We do have a heat wave in Europe, and we have one here in the U.S. starting too. But Mashable reported that June was the warmest June ever on record. This is a classic example of hysterical climate propaganda. First of all, I'm grateful for the articles such as this, for it provides an opportunity to showcase the other side of the argument. One is never going to convince an agenda-driven Zealots bent on destroying anyone their way of one's point. However, for those curious enough to look, you may be able to see why there is skepticism over the issue of CO2 not being the climate control knob. It looks like this article, it talks about the anomaly maps. And this is my favorite right here, where people freak out about the warmth and where it is right now. There's no increase in summer temps. It's all in the winter, where the WV leads to more clouds and snow with higher temperatures. You can see the lion's share of warming is because winter warmth. If you just look at the facts, the blue line winter, the red is summer, black overall, obviously distorted because the winter warmth. So even with warming in the winter, it's still frigid in the winter. And this is what we talked about too, with just because it's 20 degrees above normal in the Arctic doesn't mean it's 45 degrees outside. It's a lot colder up there in the wintertime. So when it's 20 degrees above normal in the wintertime, it's very possible it's still likely below zero. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys finish this one off. There's some things in here that I'm not quite sure. I don't want to phrase it wrong. So I've seen this before. This chart here where they're showing us the plateaus, where they believe that we're in another plateau right now of warming before we hit cooling. We'll continue to monitor that. But this is available on our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com. And I do believe, yep. So guys, sit tight. I'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, so I want to start off tonight reading an email from, and also check out this hail first of all from severe-e or dash weather EU. It's not snow, folks. That is hail on the highway. Highway to hail. All right, but on a more serious note, and I hate to be like this, but I wanted to share this email because, as I said earlier in the broadcast, I've spoke with Rex several times via email. Nice guy. And this is the first time I've kind of seen like the true concern and genuine concern in the tone of this email. And I'll go ahead and read it. He says, I was heading to Sabetha, Kansas to pick up my 3 granddaughters for a visit. We always meet in Sabetha. It's about halfway. Yesterday's trip was the first chance I've had to take a drive down I-29 from Omaha since the first flood that occurred this spring. In fact, I was driving back from Sabetha the day before that flood. Words will never be able to describe adequately the shock and sorrow I felt seeing all those fields underwater. Still, after all this time, it's a little longer trip taking the interstate, but the drive is effortless. Normally, I would have to cut over to the Nebraska side at Highway 2, but it's still underwater. 34 is underwater, still. 136 underwater, still. 159 closed. I ended up having to drive to St. Joseph and take 36 across Kansas. I would not hesitate to say that all the farm ground between Missouri River and the bluffs that run parallel to 129 on the east, that there were maybe 10 fields that had something worthwhile growing in them. The corn bins that were busted open from swollen wet corn were many. Anything that can float, from tires, propane tanks, fuel tanks, insulation, whole trees and branches of all sizes, mountains of corn stalks, small buildings, drifts of sand, dried moss, many items I could not identify, stuck in fences, leaning on houses, and just scattered randomly as far as the eye could see. Many pieces of equipment sitting around with high water marks on the tires obviously have not moved since. In years past, I would have seen an endless sea of tassels by this time of year. I drove through the Peshawar which was my usual shortcut, Highway 2, and the town looked to be as a war zone with huge heaps of damaged furniture, drywall, and trash, rotten and stinky. And then south of town, I hit the road closed sign again. I had to backtrack to the interstate. Many roads, including interstate, had huge washouts, 12 to 30 inches deep at the edge of the pavement. Maps say it's some 130 miles between Omaha and St. Joseph, Missouri, and from what I could find, roughly 600 river miles, considering a fractal look from all the twists and turns the river takes on its normal path. I could not find how many acres are included in that stretch of floodplain, but considering most of those fields are 500 to 1,000 acres each, I could not count on both hands how many fields on the whole trip down there are even planted, and count on one hand number of fields that are worth running a combine through. So he's saying there's about a couple of hands or fields that were planted, and on one hand he could count the fields that were worth running a combine through. Just think that this is just a very small region out of the whole Missouri-Mississippi floodplain that has been devastated. I have tears in my eyes just talking about it, what I saw. It's one thing to hear about it on the news, but driving through it was sickening. You feel like you're driving through the middle of an inland sea. What a catastrophe for us all. Thank you, Rex, for sharing that email with me today. And I think that's why there's a lot of people that have turned their attention to the Grand Solar Minimum community, is that they're seeing these things for their own eyes. This is not something reported on any of these other YouTube channels, or this one including. This is something that he already knew about, very aware of, very on board with everything, but seeing it for himself like this really made an impact, and I'm sure it would make all of us feel the same about what he saw today. And what's concerning is that we're only talking a few hundred miles here, and there's all this damage. Think about the rest of the areas that have been flooded out since March, February, January. So there's a lot of cleanup. Our insurance claims are going to go skyrocket through the roof this year, which could lead to higher prices next year if some of these insurance companies are even in business after this year. And they're saying it's supposed to get worse. So I don't think we can stress enough, folks, that we need to really start having a plan in place and ready to go. Buying food that you can store. Mari and I have started once again. She already had a decent start, but nowhere near what we need to be okay for a while. So Mari and I have started once again as well. Mari and I talked about doing some Patreon videos on food storage and what we're going to be doing for that period of time where food could be at a very emergency crisis level. So again, guys, this is kind of sobering stuff. It's not the fun stuff to report on, but 130 miles looking this bad. I can't imagine what the rest of the region looks like that's been flooded out and how it's going to take its toll. We're going to get some real answers by August, hopefully. And in January, we'll know for sure what the exact numbers are, which I'm bracing myself for that one. Got this in my email today, too. And, well, tomorrow is Curb Your Energy Use Day tomorrow here in upstate New York. And they want us to limit our peak use of electricity between the hours of 3 and 7. They don't want us using our air conditioners. They want us to reduce the use of air conditioners by pre-cooling your home. Turn up your thermostat a few degrees. Do not use large appliances during non-peak hours. So between 3 and 7, you can't cook dinner. Sorry. Use fans to help spread cool air around. This is just because tomorrow we are expected to see temperatures rise into the 90s. Humidity is going to be about 100% with dew points approaching 70. So it's going to be very oppressive for folks here in New York, all over New York, the East Coast alike. A lot of these houses up here don't have central air and heating because it doesn't get this hot usually in the summertime. Especially in Buffalo. When I lived in Buffalo, I don't think any house was included with any kind of central air and heating, period. Living there for a short period of time, for about 2 years. I think the temperatures got in the 90s maybe once or twice. So it wasn't like this. But I find it interesting that we know we have a very dangerous situation coming up, especially on Saturday. We've got heat advisories out right now for Saturday, as we're going to see temperatures at 95 degrees for a high with 100% humidity and 70 degrees dew point at least. Very oppressive situation. But our power company wants us to take it down a notch. Use fans to cool your house. Turn the air conditioner down. Don't cook anything between 3 and 7. Eat an early dinner, I guess, or eat a late dinner. No big deal. But once in a while is one thing. This is the kind of thing that us New Yorkers are going to be facing in the future when they attempt to try to get rid of coal and natural gas. These are the kind of notices we're going to get. They're going to realize this real fast, and I think they're kind of getting us ready for it. It's like they're like preseason rollout, blackouts coming your way. Here's how we get ready for them. Okay, let's give it a fancy title. Let's call it Curb Energy Use Day. Woo! All right. Dangerous heat wave to expand from the plains Midwest to the east into this weekend, just as I was talking about. According to weather.com, hot temperatures will spread from the plains to the east coast this weekend. The heat indices will rise to dangerous levels in those parts of the region. Let's check it out. So excessive heat warning is in the pink. A lot of New York, a lot of Pennsylvania, all of Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, parts of southern Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, parts of Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and the southeastern tip of South Dakota. The bordering areas around those states that I just mentioned are under a heat advisory, but an excessive heat warning is a little bit different. And let's go into that here. So the temperatures ranging from mid-90s to near 100 degrees are likely to encompass much of the central region. Look at this. Wow. 105 degrees in Columbus, Ohio. Folks, that's pretty freaking hot. 108 degrees on Friday. Now, this is the heat index. Okay, this is not the actual surface temperature. But it's going to feel like, with the combination of the humidity and the dew point levels, we are looking at temperatures well into the triple digits. Most of the East Coast, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois is going to get it the worst. The East Coast, DC, good Lord, 107, 111, 109 through the weekend. New York City, 101, 107, and 108, 3-day run of the heat index there. That's pretty hardcore. Especially for New York City. Guys, this is the kind of heat you're used to feeling down there in the South. Georgia, Southern Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana. But it does get heat. It does get hot up this way. New York could see more blackouts as sweltering heat wave sets in. Now, I didn't see this part. That said, we're not forecasting widespread record high temperatures since we're in what is typically the hottest time of the year. That benchmarks for setting heat records is very high. Friday and Saturday have the best shot at setting several record highs from the range of the Rockies into the Northeast, just as long as they're not recording these temperatures from the airport. These are the actual temperatures. Kansas City, 97, 96 on Friday and Saturday. A little bit of relief on Sunday. 80 degrees is going to feel very nice after they go through a 97, 96 degrees. And then the heat index is going to be near 110. Chicago, 97, 98. That's very hot. The average high in Chicago is 84 degrees at this time of the year. I think the biggest would be the New York one, for sure. 3 days in the 90s in New York City. 92, 97, and 96. Their average highs are 84 degrees. So, guys, it's important. If you live in the pink areas, you need to limit your outdoor activities. Stay hydrated. But if you don't have to be outside during this excessive heat warning, don't go outside. Try to stay cool. If you are outside, go to the lake. Make sure you have that sunblock. Go to the pool. But honestly, even being outside that long, even in the pool, can still take its toll. Guys, heat stroke is nothing to mess with. Okay? So very important to heed these heat warnings as well as the cold warnings too. And I think the reason why I'm spending a little time with this is just because this heat wave that we're getting, again, is in areas that I don't usually see high. Like I said, I've lived in Ohio all my life. Only a few times have I felt heat indices as high as 108, 110 degrees. It's impressive. For Columbus, Ohio. Even up in Detroit, 107, 108, those are the heat indexes. Again, not real surface temperatures. Very, very, very hot, humid, and very oppressive conditions when the dew points are in the 70-degree mark. So, let's take a look at some GFS. There's our live infrared satellite information. All clear here in the Northeast. Michigan, a little bit of action, maybe some showers across Ohio right now. Other than that, nothing more than a typical summer night, and it is hot in most areas. Start us off tomorrow, some scattered showers across the Northeast, along the East Coast, through the Ohio, Tennessee Valley, as well as in the South. Other than that, the Northwest stays dry. We get through Friday, dries out too. Most of the country looking good on Friday. Some showers and storms down in the South. Nothing too crazy for Friday. So that heat is locked and loaded. And Saturday, July 20th, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, you're going to remain dry. That's mainly the reason why we're going to see this heat indices go up really high. And really, just in the areas that we were talking about with the heat right in here, this is the main reason why this weekend we're going to see such hot temperatures. It's going to be dry for a change. Makes you wonder, if we hadn't had all of this rain over the past several months, how much hotter it might be. So this flooding rain, there might be a silver lining to this at this point. Got a little something going on here on the 21st out in Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado border area, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin. Little shower activity, gets a little heavy, picks up and moves across Nebraska into southern parts of Iowa, heavier in parts of Missouri, and inundating the Midwest, Kentucky, Tennessee Valley. And again, by the 22nd, another intense line of showers moves through the same spot in Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri. As this system gets flushed out by another high-pressure system, bringing in drier air, pushing this system off very slowly off to the East Coast by Tuesday. This system, Wednesday, July 24th, finally makes its way off of our coast. And we are dry once again on Wednesday, July 21st for the most part. High pressure trying to settle in the middle of our country, and it successfully does for a couple of days, but then the rain chances come back later next week into late weekend into Saturday. And honestly, it's just going to be some scattered normal rain showers. Right now, nothing too serious on the near future. Now, if we go out a little bit further, the GFS is showing us a wet, stormy pattern in the same areas, basically. High pressure coming in almost in the exact same spots, creating these little domes. I guess the good news is, so far, looking at our GFS radar, we are not locating any kind of tropical development in the Atlantic or in the Gulf. At least the GFS isn't picking it up. Not saying that there's not a chance for any kind of storms, but it would have to be a rapidly intensified one within days, because at this point, GFS is just not picking it up. Dry days for Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri. They're there in between a couple of good dousings of rain. Mainly the focus is going to be on the Ohio Valley eastward into the Northeast over the next couple of weeks. We're going to see increased chances of moisture in the south, across Kentucky, West Virginia, and up into the Northeast. Not as much as originally thought in the Northeast. That's coming more recent than later. But again, the wet pattern for Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, the South, and the Northeast does not look like it's letting up anytime soon. Also, we got to include some of the Central Plains states like Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, parts of Arkansas, and of course the Deep South. So again, very fair chances for rain for the rest of this month here in the States. And let's go ahead. I just have to see what we've seen here on temperatures. Have we changed it all? Let's see. I mean, goodness gracious. The heat is on for sure this weekend. But, I mean, we're looking at daytime highs after July 20th. I mean, geez, 70s everywhere. 60s across Pennsylvania. So this area that we're seeing the lighter yellows and the orange colors right in here, this was the area predicted by weather.com to see the cooler air for the end of July. So let's just focus on that and see what our daytime highs end up being. As GFS would probably likely so far somewhat agree. But look at that. The northern plain states definitely feeling a little bit. I mean, parts of Indiana, daytime highs 70 degrees on July 30th, the dog days of summer. Parts of Ohio, 64 degrees near Toledo. Detroit, 66 degrees July 30th for your daytime high. And really, when you go back and look at Kansas and Nebraska, half the state, the western parts of these states are going to be hot. But what about the rest of these states? Half of the states are going to be in the mid-70s to lower 70s. So my concern is not so much about dry weather, but are we getting enough heat? Are we getting enough sunlight? And time will tell, especially when we get closer to the harvest. And we start to see temperatures starting to rise a little bit more in the South and Midwest. But there again is a sharp cooling area right here that's present in early August. Mid-60s, lower 60s for highs. Minnesota, North Dakota, parts of South Dakota, parts of northern Iowa. August 3rd, daytime highs. I don't see how any crop is going to do good in Iowa with this kind of temperatures coming on. Look at this. I'm going backwards. Sorry about that. Our best chance of getting some real heat in Iowa is this weekend. That's it. There's Wednesday. There's this weekend. Insane. So you get less precipitation, but you're also a little bit cooler, unfortunately. And we're just going to have to wait and see how that bodes with the crop. Mari, would you like to come over here and say hello to everybody in the chat? I know it's been a long day. We have Mari's work never seems to be ever finished.
You know,
that's pretty fair to say, right?
I get overwhelmed because it's like there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of research, and then there's a lot of communication.
A lot of research.
Times the communication times how many different social media platforms. It gets sort of like, ooh, this is a lot. We were actually just talking in the chat. SoulQuest216 just put, does anyone else get prepper fatigue? You know, not just the hard work we put into the channel, but you as a viewer just simply absorbing the information.
Stressful.
Doing your own research, the stress of planning, researching, trying to MacGyver the best way to do something and have plans in place. It is exhausting. Definitely. Let's see. There's just so much like going on in the chat. It's hard. I didn't do a good job taking notes in the chat today because I was chasing around little fur babies. Driving me crazy right now live. Anne actually, Annie says, can GSM affect people's mental health? Not talking about from lack of food, etc., but it seems some people I know are behaving differently lately, a little nuts.
Cosmic rays?
Yeah, you know.
I mean, we've been told that cosmic rays do affect the mental health to a degree.
Sasha Dobler of abruptearthchanges.com, he has a book that actually goes into detail, people back in, I don't remember what year it was, but just showing signs of psychosis and weird mental anomalies. So it's crazy to me. It feels like everyone is so hostile and lacking compassion, and it's weird. Everyone's at each other's throats. It could be political, it could be online. No one knows how to just sort of step back, be diplomatic and nice anymore. It seems that we have had our battles ourselves, like people on the same sides at war with each other. It's hard to witness. And we do our best to, just stay positive and keep things going. But yeah, we live in some very weird, interesting times to observe. So what can I say, Jake? I don't know. Josh Mitchell said, Jake, where he is in the northwestern corner of Missouri, the corn is great. And he has 5 to 7, it's 5 to 7 feet tall. So I don't know a whole lot about growing corn. I just,
That's good. That's a good hype. I mean, look, there are going to be, I did report tonight in the crop report, there are some crops out there that are rated excellent. My point is that this year's percentage of good and excellent crop plants are way down from what they were last year. So I'm not doubting that there are some fields out there that have good growth right now, but to see the amount of, or the lack of good to excellent condition is a little concerning.
So I don't have a whole lot. It just, people, we know this is a tough topic to combat. Just don't forget to take care of yourself. And sometimes it's good just to step back and take a break and enjoy the little things. Get out into the garden and, get offline, stop researching, and just do the little things. Go for a swim in this hot weather. Just enjoy a little bit of life. Don't let the future and this information consume you, because I think a lot of people, it gets a little overwhelming and depressing, But that's all I got. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, Jake.
No, and actually, before I forget, I wanted to make a comment about the SNAP benefits being staggered. Folks, I've only lived in 2 different states. In both of those states, I've never, ever heard of dates getting staggered. Only when our government goes through a government shutdown is the only time I've ever heard of benefits being delayed. So for those of you who are commenting and say it's been like this for decades, it's news to me. And it may be that way in your state for decades. But the point of the article is that they were delaying the release of benefits to help with the food shortages. It's not about, oh my God, they're delaying your food stamp benefits. It's the reason why they were doing it. That's what concerned me. That's why we shared that article, because they actually came out and said, we want to help the food shortage problem that we're having. So we're going to stagger the dates here in Nevada. And apparently they don't do that. And, to me, it was just to show you guys, like, there is people that are actually getting truthful information when it comes to this food shortage situation. It's minor right now, but if they're already making changes this year, I sound like a broken record. Next year is going to be worse, I guess. And we'll have to just, hopefully everybody gets with the message, gets prepared, and gets ready for what is coming in the near future. So that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in once again. Check out our Facebook and Twitter pages. Also, check us out on Patreon. Of course, if you're new to the channel tonight, please like and share and subscribe. Hit the bell notification. And when you do, make sure you click on the all. When it says what kind of notifications you want to get custom, just click on the all. That way you get all the alerts when we do go live on this channel. Guys, we will be live. I think we had a little bit of a success with a midday Sunday show, so I think we're going to repeat it again. our friend Henrik will join us for a little bit of commentary and just a little discussion really on Sunday about the weather. It's been a while since we talked to him about his part of the woods, so Henrik can share with us the climate news over there and how things are in Denmark. Always interesting to hear people's perspective from all over the world. In fact, eventually it'd be nice to have a Sunday roundtable. So Mari is working on something like that in the near future where Sundays could be more of about discussions unless we have breaking news that we just have to report on. All right, with that being said, guys, thank you again for tuning in, and we will be live again Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, we will talk soon.